Hello, welcome to the Real Estate Regroup Show. I am your host, LJ Walker, a real estate investor helping you realize your dream of owning a home or investing in one. Today I'm going to be talking about housing options for teenagers ages 13 through 17. Today, more than ever before, I would say that we have a lot of young people, particularly teenagers in that age range, that are actually making a lot of money. Some even make more money than their parents do, particularly those who were able to take advantage of YouTube and Instagram and found ways to turn those videos that they were making into a profit. Plus, you have a lot of young people nowadays who are getting into business early with their own products, such as lemonades and ties. A question was asked to me a while back as far as whether or not there was an age limit when it came to qualifying for grants. Well, I'm taking this a little further, and I wanted to delve more into how is it that a teenager can go ahead and buy a home. As many of you know, you can't get a mortgage unless you are 18 in most states. Contracts are not legally binding also if the person is under 18. They must be 18 years and over. Now, when it comes to most subsidies and grants, the majority of those are for people who are in their 20s. The few that I've seen for those younger would be for those who were in the foster care system and they were aged out of it. Otherwise, there are two ways that someone under the age of 18 can go about acquiring a home. The first way is if they get it in a trust that's managed by an adult. The adult will have to sign for that child. It's normally best, many will get their grandparents or their great-grandparents to sign because they pretty much, not all of them, but many have lived their life. Credit really doesn't matter that much to them. It's not as important to them as those who are younger and coming up, even though some young people don't take credit as seriously as they really should. Another thing is an adult must be the trustee for the mortgage. In other words, they have to put their credit on the line for that child's investment into property. Now, you may say to yourself, why in the world would a parent want to do this? Why in the world would a parent allow their child, who is between the age of 13 and 17, to buy a house? Well, there are a number of reasons, actually. Number one, children are automatically in a lower tax bracket. Number two, especially when it gets to be that they're 16, 17, you have some colleges that do not have dorms. So if their child is interested in going into a college that doesn't have a dorm, that's another reason why. In some cases, not all, but in some cases, it's actually cheaper to live off campus than it is to live on campus. Plus, when I was back in college, I remember a lot of times, room and board pretty much goes together. And sometimes they would hook up with someone else and end up leaving the dorm anyway. And it's not like you could get your money back. Or they would go off campus and, eat at a restaurant as opposed to eating the food at the school cafeteria. So that's another reason why some parents, particularly those who've already gone through college, have rethink having their child paying for room and board on campus. The other reason, and a very big reason, is this. If your child wants to go to college out of state, in order for them to qualify for state funding, they have to live there. Now, some of them will say that the child has to live there for at least a year before starting school. Some don't have that particular rule, but that is one of the reasons why. And you do have, like, for example, in New York, not that too many people out of state would do this, but in New York, I qualified for the HEOP program many years ago. I'm not sure if it's still around. In order to qualify for that particular scholarship program, you had to live in New York. You had to be a resident of New York. So let's say somebody who is from Jersey or Connecticut wanted to go to school in New York, they would have to either, maybe sometimes they would find a relative to live with. But if you don't have any relatives here, then the parents would buy a home and then put that home in that child's name. There's also a tax deduction for the state tuition program as well, in-state tuition programs. My school that I went to, they did have a special reduction program, tuition reduction program for those who lived in state as opposed to those who lived out of state. Out of state people had to pay more money. So that's another reason why a lot of parents will agree to that. The next thing is this. They're hoping, it is a gamble, and it does work sometimes. If that particular property, let's say the child, after they graduate, they don't want to stay in that particular town. They may want to move, or they may get a job somewhere else. If they sell that house, they're also hoping that it'll appreciate to the level where it'll pay off the student loans. It doesn't always work out that way, but sometimes it does. Sometimes it does appreciate, but it may not appreciate to the point where it pays it all off, but it helps in paying off any student loan that the child has taken out. It can also be a source of extra income, like as let's say during the times when the child is not living in the apartment physically, during, let's say, the summer months or the holidays, they can go ahead and do an Airbnb, for example, and make money that way. Or if there's an extra room in the apartment, or if they went ahead and bought a house, they can rent out different parts and make extra income on that house. That's another reason why some people do it. If the parents had elected into the 529 plan, now this would actually be the parents' money, not necessarily the child's money, even though the 529 plan is for the child. Let's say that the child decides to do a 2 to 3 year sabbatical in an educational institution that qualifies under the 529 plan. That actually can also be tax-free, and that 529 plan money can be used not just for books and tuition, but for housing also. Now with the 529 plan, you can't use it to actually buy a house. You would actually use it to pay down the to pay off the mortgage. So that's what you would use that 529 plan for. The other reason why some people do it is because, let's say, there's the ESA plan, which is the Educational Savings Account. It's also known as an educational IRA. Unfortunately, with that account, a child can't live in the property. So that's another reason why they may do it that way. And then lastly, another benefit is that if the house is in the child's name, it allows them to establish credit. Now let's look at the second way in which a child can own a home. In some states, they have something called teen emancipation. And what that does is it allows a child to legally be considered an adult. Now, to do this is not that cheap. Sometimes you have to go to court, and it's going to cost you about $150 to $200 to file with a family lawyer. But I would definitely seek free legal advice before proceeding. The options on doing this are limited and require a parent or legal guardian's permission. If you get married, meaning if the teenager gets married before reaching the age of majority, that's another way in which they can do this without actually going to court. Or if they are 17 and they decide to enlist in the military, they also become emancipated. But of course, that also requires parents' permission. In order to actually win that particular case, if it goes to court, they want to see that you have been working, the teenager has been working for at least 2 years. And even if it's not on the same job, they want it to be in the same field. Now, as an emancipated teenager, where you are legally considered an adult, you can enter into contracts as an adult and not be 18 years old. You won't need your parents' permission to sign any legally binding contract. You can buy a home outright, earn an income, keep all your income, and make your own health care decisions. Teenagers can. Landlords can rent to a minor without having a parent co-sign the rental agreement, as long as that teenager gives that landlord a copy of the Declaration of Emancipation. Okay? Now, let's look at runaways. If a child runs away, that does not legally emancipate that child. Even if that child does have a job and has been working for 2 years, even if that child has been alone for a while, because you do have some parents that unfortunately have abandoned their children as well. Even if your parent has abandoned you, you still have to go to court and get that court order for emancipation. Now, for runaways, you would have to go to supportive housing. 1-800-runaway.org is one place where you may look into, that would have a list of different supportive housing in your area. And since many runaways are victims of child abuse, I would suggest that you call 1-800-4-a-child. And then you have those who unfortunately were also involved in human trafficking. In that case, you would call 1-888-373-7888 for further assistance as far as finding supportive housing. You also have the DOOR, the Center of Alternatives, that's out there, and they support both runaways and throwaways. I kind of don't like the term throwaway, but that's legally, that's the term for when a parent tells a child that they cannot move in or that they no longer are able to assist them. You can also go to the Department of Youth and Community Development. You can go to, in New York City, we have 2 other organizations, and you can find them on the website growingupnyc.com. Now, if you are a landlord and you want to house runaways and throwaways, you would have to get permits in order to do that. And to get that information, go to http://www.nyc.gov/site/BCD/services/youth/RHY. Now, I'm going to continue further along the way. For those of you who are teenagers and you are considering buying property, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, I would say buy a condo, particularly if the market that you're in is a condo market, if it's conducive to it. States like Colorado, Texas, Virginia, Arizona, Tennessee, Georgia, North Carolina, Florida, Ohio, Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, and of course New York would be the best markets for those. And the reason why I say that is because condos offer you the most flexibility and there's less maintenance. It allows you more free time, more time for you to study. So that's why I would actually, if you are going to go this route, I would encourage you to go more for a condo than to go for a house. And for those of you teenagers who are making a whole lot of money, I would say it's best to just buy the property outright and not have any mortgage on top of that, if you can, as opposed to trying to buy the most expensive place. Now, as a teenager, if you want to go ahead and invest, other ways or other areas in which you can get into real estate, let's say you're not necessarily at that age or not close to being ready for college as of yet, or you don't even know if you want to go to college, you can always go to the Motif Investing website and create your own ETF. It's free. There's no age restriction on creating a Motif. There is a restriction as far as you actually investing in any motifs. The cutoff age is 18. When it comes to stocks and commodities, as far as investing that way, you have to share title with a parent or legal guardian if you are under 18. Even emancipated teens are not allowed to participate in the market. Any additional advice that I would have outside of real estate, as far as if you are a student, I would say just continue on the search as far as knowing what you want to do with the rest of your life. Definitely take advantage of your student ID card. You could go to a website called puckermob.com /entertainment 70 things you can score with your student ID, the benefits of it. Next, I would say learn to save. Next, curb your enthusiasm. Try to discipline yourself when it comes to what you spend or, what attracts you. Because sometimes I notice many of you are just very impulsive and you want to buy everything you see. Just be careful with that, because money sometimes is not that easy to come by, but it's very easy to go away. Limit how much you carry. Definitely, of course, as soon as you become of age, I would say get a work permit. Take on any, particularly those of you who are not necessarily at that stage where you own your own business and you're doing very well. Get yourself some part-time work, summer job, co-op. Get yourself in a co-op program at your school if you have it. For those of you who are making that money, definitely choose a good bank, one that charges you less fees. Also, choose a good credit card, because once you go to college, you'll be hit with a whole bunch of applications to have you pressure you into getting a credit card, and it'll really sound good and everything, but once you get it, that's where many people mess up. And then they end up with $50,000 in loans, and some $150,000 and $200,000 in loans. So careful what you sign up with. As a matter of fact, have your parent, if you are still in touch with your parent, have them go over any application of a credit card. Don't just sign up. And if you are an emancipated teen, I would say go to a lawyer and have them go over the paperwork and help you, or even your CPA, someone that you trust, that you're in good relationship with, before you sign any paperwork. Even especially when it comes to real estate, definitely have a lawyer. When you're gonna get ready to buy a house, have a lawyer go over all your paperwork. For those of you who are teenagers, who, again, you're on your way to home ownership, please be mindful of your credit. It is everything. It's more imperative to you that you pay your bills on time, even though you may have your parents as a guarantor, or your great-grandparents or your grandparents as a guarantor, or you may have them, trusting in trust for you. You still want to make sure that you pay everything on time. So, well, folks, that's my advice for anyone who is a teenager, any parents of teenagers between the ages of 13 and 17 who are interested in purchasing a home at that age. That's what I have for you as far as my knowledge is concerned. Hopefully, the information will inspire you to make smart financial moves. Feel free to pass this along. Just to reiterate, I do have a YouTube channel where I have copied many of my broadcasts to. It's called Real Estate and Recreation. So check me out there. But as for now, stay blessed, stay encouraged, and have a good night.